by a friend of someone called Robert Markwick. Robert and Richard did not know each other, but Robert knew Jeremy Black, whose brother Andrew was trying to raise money to get his invention, an online betting exchange which linked gamblers to other gamblers so that they could make and take opposite sides of a bet, off the ground. So Richard heard of this fledgling company, Betfair, at 4 removes from its founders, and did not know the 3 closest links to the company at all. In deciding to invest in Betfair, Richard relied heavily on advice from Patrick Weaver, a racing journalist, whom he had met by chance at a party near Santa Anita Racecourse in California. If Richard had not met Patrick, and if Patrick had not given a favorable verdict on Betfair, Richard might not have invested in the company. Meanwhile, Greg heard about another investment opportunity in a similar betting exchange called Flutter, also launched in 2000, this time by 2 former management consultants from California. One of them, Josh, had met a guy called Tim Levine while working in Sydney, Australia, who much later joined him in the Flutter startup in London. Tim told the story of this startup to Jason Katz, a longtime buddy in the banking world. Jason knew Greg, and that Greg was interested in investing in online businesses, so he told him about Flutter. Greg suspected that Flutter could be a business benefiting from a network like AutoTrader all those years before, so he invested. By early 2001, therefore, Richard and Greg had become shareholders in similar businesses, both based in London, but they still didn't know each other. However, they had unwittingly taken a step closer to meeting when they agreed to go on the boards of directors of Betfair and Flutter respectively. But the ventures were rivals and didn't talk to each other. Then, to cut a long story short, a merger between Flutter and Betfair was mooted, and after protracted negotiations, which nearly broke down at several points, the 2 firms joined forces. Greg joined Richard on the enlarged Betfair board. That is how, one muggy day in spring 2001, in a tiny, crowded space in Parsons Green, southwest London, which Betfair humorously called its boardroom, we eventually got acquainted. We also came to see that the firm's success stemmed largely from the network of gamblers it assembled. As Betfair's network became much stronger than that of any rival exchange, particularly once Flutter had joined forces, serious gamblers gravitated to it. The chances of getting their bet matched by someone taking the opposite view was much better on a larger exchange than a smaller one. As more and more gamblers joined the Betfair site, it grew to become 20 or 30 times bigger than any other exchange. It became what we have come to term a superconnector. So how did Superconnect the book arise? It came about because Greg suggested the idea to Richard. Richard had put him on an email list consisting of a diverse set of friends and acquaintances he used to test out his new book ideas, and Greg spontaneously replied, "These are all okay, but there's something interesting to be written around 6 degrees of separation and network effects." Richard loved the suggestion and asked Greg to collaborate on the book. Again, it took a combination of experience to tackle it with confidence. Greg was sure of the subject matter, and Richard was the author of a string of successful books about business, ideas, and careers. But even then, this book would not have reached its current form but for a book agent in Oxford called Sally Holloway, who forced Richard and Greg to write a decent proposal that led to an auction in which 3 leading New York publishers participated. Richard had only come across Sally because a former colleague had suggested they meet. So the way the authors met and the way the book originated each comprised a series of human contacts, long chains of personal links that became fully apparent only in retrospect. If any one of the links had not existed, we would not have worked at Betfair, we would not have met, we would not have written this book. In the pages that follow, we will present dozens of stories and a lot of scientific evidence that indicate that our experience, while unique, is also routine. In other words, the improbable is the rule. If you look backwards at any key event in your life, the chances are that it shouldn't have happened how it did. This was an unusual book to write. Sometimes it felt that as we wrote it, we were exploring the truly unusual, cutting-edge insights into the way the human world works. As one of those involved puts it, network science is the science of the 21st century. At other